Welcome to Alcohol and Anime Night, the show that gets you drunker, the show that gets you fatter, and the show that delayed the release of this episode for a few days because it would have been terrible timing otherwise. Stay tuned. My name is Scott, and tonight we are talking about one of the first controversial titles of 2024, Mato SeiHei No Slave, which translates to something like Slave of the Demon City Elite Soldiers, which sounds like something we all can probably relate to. Tonight I also have this Beat Box, which is, I believe, like a boxed wine, and it's endorsed by Avril Lavigne, so that's worth trying. Let's give it a go. Well, it's supposed to be like a pink lemonade kind of flavor. It's not bad. I don't know if it's just a little too sour. I don't know. It's not bad. If you like lemons, it's got a strong lemon flavor. So that might be worth it for you. But yeah, it was worth trying out. So with a name like Slave of the Demon City Elite Soldiers, the localizers were scrambling, as always, to find something a bit more PC. And what they came up with was Chained Soldier, which I'm not really sure that is much better, but it didn't have the word slave in it, so they were good to go. In any case, that's the way you'll find it on High Dive or Crunchyroll. Wait, are they still around? Produced by Studio 7 Arcs, Mato SeiHei No Slave is an anime adaptation of Takehiro's manga of the same name that began in early 2019. Our protagonist, Yuki Wakura, is walking around the city lamenting his lost sister when suddenly he falls into a portal, transporting him to a pocket dimension called Mato. As it turns out, this is a fairly common thing that happens, so much so that they just casually call it a Mato mishap. Now, if being suddenly transported to a parallel dimension wasn't traumatic enough, of course, it's filled with inexplicably vicious demons called Shuki. They tear him to shreds, and the rest of the series is just his family planning his funeral and weeping over his degenerate internet browsing history. Just kidding. Just before he is ripped to pieces, Chief Kyoka Uzen of the Anti-Demon Corps swoops in to save our weak-ass protagonist. It's too late, though. They are now surrounded and outnumbered by the natives. Now, if you thought that it was an odd coincidence that Shuki and Yuki sound and are spelled similarly, then you have just experienced a little something those in the writing game called foreshadowing. This is where we learn about the chief's spicy superpower. If Yuki agrees to be her slave, then he can werewolf out, and together they can destroy all the demons. Never mind that the Mato world is actually the demons' home, and these ladies have just moved in with higher advanced technology. I'll admit this is seeming a little familiar. Never mind, these girls are here to kick ass. Other than the endless hordes of demons in this dimension, there also grows a Mato fruit that gives females who consume it a random superpowered ability they call blessings. This is nothing at all like Gum Gum fruit or quirks, so just sit down and shut up. By the way, they apparently wanted to come up with a unique name in the subtitles, so in many versions they call them peaches. These new abilities have given humans a defense against the demons, again, whose home they're invading, and the women are literal saviors while men have moved to the bottom of the social hierarchy. After slaughtering the local indigenous creatures, he decides it sounds pretty fun to stay and be the housemaid for the 7th unit of the Anti-Demon Corps. Now, I must tell you that this first episode isn't that good, and frankly, it really doesn't even have the vibe of the rest of the season. Once the second episode hits, though, we do get a taste of where this is going. You see, Chief Kyoka's problematic slave demon werewolf creator's superpower has a cost. Whatever her slave thinks he is owed as compensation, she is magically compelled to do. Every time. With a whole house full of demon hunter ladies and lewd thoughts always in his mind as payment, we see the final form of this ecchi harem. Surprisingly, Chained Soldier actually delves into the paradox of slavery, exposing the fundamental flaw that those in power soon find themselves incapable of doing even the most basic tasks and thus become slaves themselves. But it also takes the most fun parts of a bunch of peak anime, adds some nudity, and calls it a day. To be honest, the slavery bit here is a bit more of the Britney Spears variety rather than the Django or biblical kind, since he volunteers for it. But I guess, hey, controversy. The identical cannon fodder Shuki monsters and bland exterior backgrounds can make it feel a bit like a cheap RPG at times, but the fights are cool, and they are unique with the girls' absurd powers. I must reinstate, though, that first episode isn't really that good, and it doesn't give you a feel for the rest of the series. The setup is done so boring, I almost didn't continue watching. By episode 3, though, it finds its feet and starts to get properly lewd and properly funny. And the good stuff is mostly uncensored from what I've watched so far. There are some definite character influences from some of your favorite anime, such as Date Alive and My Hero Academia, but that doesn't stop it from being a really fun show. My favorite character is Himari Azuma, whose quirk is that she can learn the other girl's peach blessings. She mostly uses an ability called Bang Bang Bang, which is not what you think it is. It basically allows her to transform her body into like sweet guns and chainsaws and other shit that makes her like a super sexy T-1000. She also drives a really cool MB Willys Jeep, so that didn't hurt either. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode. I very much enjoyed this show so far. It's still ongoing, and if you haven't checked it out, I believe it's available on High Dive or wherever piracy ships sail. In the meantime, my name was Scott. Kampai.